let's take the barn, for instance. Even when you're talking to an agent, they will say something like, oh, yes, it's got a barn and it has water and it has electric, but they don't even know what a barn is because they tell you it's a horse barn. So then I persist and I go, so does it have concrete stalls? Yes.
Yeah, you told me that.
There's no sand. Well, it's not really a barn. It's just a concrete shed. Oh, there's no partitions up. There's no stalls created. No, but you could make it a horse barn. They're just really not knowledgeable as to what is required for a horse and of a horse, the owner, to have safety for the horses in a barn. It has to be equipped. You have to think about the emergencies that could occur. You have to have the proper lighting. You know, if a horse gets hurt or a vet has to come out in the middle of the night, he's not going to be able to do surgery with a flashlight. So
Right.
there's just a lot of things that some of the agents say, oh yeah, I'm going to sell this big property and I'm going to make the money, but they have no idea as far as fencing. When you say floorboard fencing, they kind of pause and say floorboard fencing. And I say, yes, that's 4 boards running the land or the width of the property, keeping horses in. They don't have any idea of what a water, they'll say, oh, is that one of those pipes that's outside? That's like a funnel. And I go, yes, that's close. But, they don't know. And some of them, it's too bad because some of them don't know anything about horse properties, especially when you're talking about a barn and you're talking about the electrical and you're talking about the stall base and is it, concrete? Is it sand? Is it quarter down? They have no clue. They just don't. And
Yeah.
it's kind of sad.
Well,
And then people will call and say, oh, I'm going to Tennessee and I'm going to buy some property and I'm going to get a horse. Oh, gosh, I've always wanted a horse. So when I start picking their brain, like, have you had a horse before? Do you know about horses? Do you know about their feed? Do you know the breeds? What's good with kids? If you have kids, they say, oh, no, my friend has a horse and he's great. Oh, okay, so it's a gelding. What's that?
oh my gosh.
So it's a little scary, and my job is every time that I get someone, who's sincere, who wants to buy some acreage, and I'll go, yeah, I would love to have a horse or two. And I'll go, well, that's great. Is it for the kids? Is it for you? Is it for show? Is it just a good horse that you want around children and they can ride? How many hands are you looking for? And they'll go, what do you mean hands? It's just another word of saying, well, I'm looking for a big horse or a little horse or a horse for an 11-year-old. That all makes a big difference. They don't know the difference between a gelding and a mare and a stud. So you have to educate them on that. And I always tell them, don't ever just get one horse. Get a pony and a horse, or get a goat and a horse. Just get someone, a playmate with them, because there's nothing worse than one horse alone in a big pasture. They get very, very lonely, and they will develop all kinds of
behavioral problems. Yeah.
Because they're all alone, because you can't be out there 24/7.
Yeah.
So all those kind of things are important. If you're going to train with them, you're going to spend your 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. in the afternoon with the horse, grooming and talking and riding, exercise, training him, giving him some slack and letting him walk around everywhere with you. That's different. But if you're not going to do that, you're just going to leave him in the pasture and go, oh, let's go see the big horse later. I'm only going to spend 15 minutes a day. That's a silly thing. You don't want to be doing that. Would you want someone to do that to you?
Right.
So it's just education of the people who come to Tennessee who want a horse. It's education for a realtor or an agent who really has never sold horse properties before. And when I call them and I go through, because I have horses.
Yeah, I know.
I know what's required. And if I'm looking for some people who go, hey, I want a horse property, they don't want me to know that I don't know anything about it. It just means you have to do your homework. I've been around it for, gosh, I don't know, it seems like forever, but that's how you learn. But some people don't have any idea. When you call them and you say, what kind of barn is it? Electric, water? Oh, no, it's all concrete. Oh, it's just a storage shed. Or they tell you, yeah, it's a horse barn. So you go there with your client, you look at it, and I've smartened up because if it's a horse property with much acreage, I go and I check it out first. If they're paying the big bucks, I go do a walkthrough, check out my barn, check out the layout, see what's required. And if I walk in, sometimes there's this big shed. It's called a barn, and it's just a total open concrete floor. That's not a barn. That's a shed.
Yeah.
That's a workshop.
So for a Diane Bourne approved barn, what should it have?
It should have the correct stall size, first of all. Okay. If you're looking for a pony, if you have a pony, you may want a small stall, maybe a 10 by 10. Thinking ahead, medical situations and whatever. If you've got a big warm blood, you may want a 12 by 14 or minimum a 12 by 12. All of that's very important. Right. If you have a big thoroughbred, because they've got the long legs, you want them to be able to lie down, you're going to want like a 14 by 14. You may want a 14 by 16. So those are things that are very important. You have to have water in all your stalls, or at least you should have the capability of getting water quickly if you need it. You should have electric, good lighting if you don't have it in every stall. I have it in every stall, but that's how I designed my barn. I was not only thinking of today, but I was thinking of down the road, medical issues, medical situations. Off there, someone would say to me, oh yeah, they have those back doors, that split. Although I guess you call them split doors. No, not really. Yeah. But off of the back of your stalls, you should have an area that's called a medical paddock. So at any time that you have a horse, you're able to put him in a confined area, yet he can see all the other horses, and he can see outside, and he doesn't feel like he's so alone.
Yeah, right.
That way they heal much better. So you should have a tack room, and you should be able to put your food away. The horses should have clean water accessible all the time. When winter comes, you should be able to heat the water, or at least make sure that it stays in their trough or in their paddock or in their stalls with heaters or something, so that they always have access to water. Otherwise, no water for the horses, especially in the winter, boy, they go dehydration quickly. So, all of those things are just very, very important. And good circulation is very important in your barn.
What does that mean?
No idea that it's not just, gee, I love this property, I'm going to put a barn right over there because I think it's going to look great. Well, how is the weather? Where's your wind? Where's north? Where's south? Where's east? All of that's very important. You want to be able to have a nice flow of air at all times.
Wow.
And, what do you want to do? Do you want to insulate your barn? You don't want to spend the money? Okay, just insulate the roof. That's a lot. Plus, if they have blankets. There's just so many things, like you can't have food hanging around. People don't know that. They just leave open buckets. And, of course, if you've got a barn, you're going to have those little mice. You're going to have them. So you've got to protect that. Keep your food in containers. Keep it organized. Have a small little refrigerator there for any kind of meds that you give your horses. You don't want that out in the middle of summer or in winter. In the winter, it'll freeze. Banamine will freeze. It gets very, very hard, and then you've got to warm it up in your hands or in your jacket before you give it to the horse if he needs it in the winter. It's just a lot of little things, and that's really important for people to understand. It's not just, I'm getting a horse.
Right.
There's so much more to it.
Okay, so let me tell you what I'm doing, and then I'm going to email you, and then when the time comes, I'm going to send you. So what we're doing is this: I'm creating for real estate agents, and you would get this for free. But I'm creating webinars that are pre-recorded, and we do all the ads and all that. And so you would just put a post in your Facebook and your Instagram and TikTok, and then people would click on it and sign up for how to buy a horse property. And so I've talked to some horse owner agents, and I'm getting feedback. But as I was listening to someone today, I was like, Diane, your conversation with me back 10 years ago has stuck in my brain ever since. And so when when they're talking about stuff, and I'm like, no, man. Diana was telling me. I have a client, a horse agent called Diana. So I'm sorry if I'm saying that name,
It's okay.
but basically, I was like, Diane, just she was talking so much about the barn and more than what everyone's saying. And I'm like, I just gotta call her. So I asked Shar. I said, Shar, she's in Hawaii right now on vacation. I said, do you mind if I call Diana? I'm not gonna sell her anything. She's like, oh yeah, go ahead. And so I was like, so when you started saying what you did, I was like, oh, that's exactly the stuff that I remember. You were telling me about, it can't be a shack. That's what I remember. It can't be a shack. And what's funny is that there's so many agents that put their check above the horse's welfare.
Gosh, that's terrible. That is really, really sad.
But it's true.
You know that my first deal was an awesome deal. And I always thank the Lord for that, because I was a real newbie. Didn't know, I had just moved here, got my license, went home, sold my home, came back, and all of a sudden I'm finding myself in the midst of, living in Franklin. I don't even know where Brentwood is. Where is that? Where's Franklin? I had no idea.
Yeah.
I got to go to this address. I'm like, oh my God, GPS, I guess GPS or whatever we had at the time. And, it's someone always told me from the very beginning, just go out there, be the best you can be honest, be, personable, and don't ever count your money. Just concentrate on helping people get what they want. And I've always done that. I would just go out there and work, and then I'd get money, and I go, oh, I have a closing tomorrow. Oh my! I mean, it's like my husband would go, you didn't know? And I said, no, I'm too busy working with this client to worry about what's coming in. And that's not to sound, cocky.
No.
I just felt that was so much more important, because if you do right for others, it's all going to come back to you tenfold and plus.
Yeah, but what you just told me in a 3-minute time frame, so many people probably wished that they had an agent like you. They bought property because some agent told them that they were a horse property person and they didn't own horses or don't care, and they bought the property, and now they don't have the most opportune. And for the people that are building barns, they don't think about the location of the barn and the combination of circulation and accommodation to the animals. That what you're saying just in this short little bit is a lot. It's a lot of stuff that most agents don't talk about. So it's something that
because number one, they don't know. Number two, they don't want to scare the client.
Yeah.
And number three, they can't just say, oh, well, I can help you. I'll give you the name of this farrier, or I'll give you the name of a vet. And I usually use the people that I have, only because I like them, and I've asked them permission to say, can I refer you to clients that I work with? There's no exchange of any monies or anything like that. But it's just that I think it's so important. I have clients who call me and go, hey, what was the name of your farrier again? I lost his number. Oh, they'll call me 6 weeks later. I'm so sorry. Can I have the number of your farrier again? So finally, I just sent them a card in the mail and said, here's the number of my farrier on the back of my business card. So
that's funny.
She laughed and she said, oh, I guess I'll always have it now.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
but it's true. I just love my animals, and there's nothing better than to see somebody else who is buying a ranch and they're into it and they're exercising their horses. They're playing with them, showing the kids how to ride, and they buy horses that are extremely gentle, not these horses that have been beat up. So, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I would be the first one to buy a beat up horse and just bring him back to a great life, because that's just me. But I would never want anybody like that to do that, especially a newbie who doesn't even have a horse.
Right.
Or they'll say, can I buy 1 acre? I want to get a big horse. Because I'll say, what are you going to do with your acre? A horse? My goodness, no. A horse
That's not
needs
enough.
an acre. So where's your house going? Because
Yeah.
you're now living on the 1 acre. And I'd say to them, they say, yeah, but it's okay. We could do that. And I said, you don't want to do that. You really don't. And I talk to them. I go, okay, well, we better buy 3 then. I said, okay, well, that's a little bit better. That'll give you 2 acres for 2 horses and 1 acre for your house. So it's just, educating them. They don't know. They just see the lifestyle, or they'll listen, to me to talk about my horses. And do you have horses, or what do you do? What's their names, and do they ride? And I have people come over here sometimes, and they'll just kind of like, oh, I wish I had the horses. Wish I could do that. Yeah, but with it comes a lot of responsibility, happiness, and sadness the day that they die, or that you have to put them down.
Right.
And I'm saying that because I just I had my Palomino. I had him for 15 years.
Oh.
I had to put him down last Saturday night at 6:00 in the downpour, freezing rain with snow coming. But I didn't care. I was out there with my husband, and he was an EPM horse, neurological disorder, that just worsened and worsened, and we kept giving him strong meds. And one thing I always tell him, I said, if you can't afford to have a horse, when he really, really needs you most, to take care of him and give him medication and give him the quality of life that he deserves, you should not buy one, because it can be very expensive.
Yeah.
Your horse can go down, and the first thing you know, in 2 days, you're looking at a $2,500 bill. And if that's going to scare you away and you can't afford it, don't do that.
Right.
Because you're not being fair to the animal. And so I just, I don't try to deter them from having a horse, but I do want them to know that it's not, unless you're going to join the show circuit, and that's your goal, or that's your daughter's goal or something, you're going to spend money for that. But otherwise, you don't make money on your horse. Money, the hay goes in one end and it comes out the other end.
Yeah.
There's no green coming out of anywhere.
Yeah,
Forget it.
that's right.
So they go, oh, wow, that's pretty expensive. I go, well, so yeah, it can be, but there's the enjoyment. You have to balance it out. So,
yeah, well, and sometimes just get, I used to live in San Diego, where there's a lot, Rancho Santa Fe and some other places, and near there are places where you can rent horses for the day, and and it's like, hey, you know what? Before you think about this, why don't you, go
for a trail ride.
Go for there, and then go see how they're taken care of. That's the other one. I had someone that was serious about it, and the girl I was dating at the time, she said, "Hey, go to this place, and tell them that I sent you, and then they're gonna take you for an hour or two, go through the whole facility, and show you what they do. And then when they did that, they go, yeah, I'm not gonna get a horse." And it's like,
well, yeah, exactly. It's not just, like, you can't just say, okay, Ferry was here, okay, 6 weeks from now, he'll come back and clean their feet. Oh,
right.
My gosh, I cringe on that.
Well,
when I go show properties and I see the horses and the flies are eating their eyes and their face, and
right.
I told Wanda one day, I said, you know what, I think I'm going to buy a box of fly masks. I'm going to keep them in my car, and then when I'm there, I'm going to, if it's not a property that I'm selling, I'm going to call a listing agent and say, hey, I have some fly mask in my car. Do you mind if I put one on that horse, or could you call the owners and see if I could put a fly mask on, or give them a carrot? That's just, a fly mask is $19. But if you watch the Chick Saddlery site, well, heck, you can buy them on sale sometimes for $7.
Yeah.
So it's not an impossibility. It all depends on what's important.
Right. And I'm not, and I was telling someone that they're not dogs. Dogs, they're accessible. They can come in the house and watch TV. Horses out there by themselves, and you gotta take care of them. Like I have some agents that I know that they're like, yeah, I have a horse. Well, did you see it today? He goes, oh no, I boarded it up with this place. When's the last time we saw it? Oh, like 3 weeks ago. I'm like, oh my God. So you haven't, like, how do you know that,
So why do you have a horse then?
Right.
Take the $500 that you're paying for stall fees, if that's the case, because, probably more expensive than that.
Yeah.
And just go do something else.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, go see a horse. Go see a horse. That's the thing. There's so many places where there's horses available for you to go hang out for the day. Adopt for the day.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's
So
one of those
it's
things.
just a matter of educating some people because they just don't know. So when I can put someone like that under my wing, I thoroughly enjoy looking for the property with them, seeing what it has, making notes, and then giving them a checklist if they're going to do a horse. I always tell them, you're not going to do the horse until you buy the property. So before you get your horse, let's sit down, come out to my place. Let's go through the barn so that you can and I can just look at the things that are most important. You don't have to have the Taj Mahal. You just need the basics, and you need to have them there and working, and important meds that are important for horses, and make sure that they're getting their vitamins. And always call your vet if you're in dire need of having a question answered. I have horse books at the barn, and sometimes when I see my horse acting peculiar, either in a funny way or a sad way or depressed way, I pick out my book and let me see that. So I look it up and go, oh, you're just being a real brat today. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And they look at me, their ears flip back and forth. But if I say, well, who wants a treat? Oh my gosh, they're in my tack room immediately. All three of them. Well, now it's two, but all three of them would be there at the door. Treats. She said treats. So I say to my husband every morning, honey, like sometimes he'll go to the barn and I'll go, so what the boys say today? I'll go, Dee, they didn't say anything. And I said, you didn't listen because they talked to you. He said, Diane, you tell me what they said tomorrow.
That's funny.
I just relate to them, and I always have something to talk about, or I turn on the music, or if one of them's yawning all morning.
Yeah.
So who was up partying last night? Why are you yawning? You look like you've been partying all night. The ears go back and forth like they'll kind of whinny, and they know what you're saying, and it's
That's
cool.
right. That's right.
It's just cool.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. Thank you very, very much. You invigorated me to continue on my search. So what I'm going to do is I made notes. I'm going to add some stuff, and then when I get this sort of ready, I'm going to give it to you, and you give me your notes on it. Because in the next 3 weeks to a month, I'm going to have a webinar made that's going to talk about all the things that people should know. And then when I get it all done, then what's going to happen is, so this webinar is going to be pre-recorded in 3 parts. The first part is the intro. The second part is the main webinar, and then the third part is the outro. And the intro and outro I'm going to make with the agents that are horse real estate agents. And because of you give a lot of meat to the conversation, you'll get it for free. I'll give it to you, and then I'll hook you up on the system, all free, and then you just advertise wherever you want, and not like advertise means posting. You just post it on your social media, and then when they go to the landing page, it'll be your name and the horse property guide. Now we just talked about buying. There's things. In fact, when you represent a seller of a horse property, you could go and say, hey, listen, I'm certified. I know this property has the right stalls. It has this. It has the right drainage and the water. For other properties out there, you'd have to spend $20,000 to $25,000 to make it comparable to what this is. So the price is worth it because of this, and this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get things going, and then I'll be emailing you, and then in time I'll then call you back, and we'll talk about how you would represent the seller and the things that you could think about. But what's going to happen in the next month, I'm going to have a webinar, and it may change throughout the year, but the first webinar is going to be about how to buy a horse property, and then how to list, and why it's important to have someone like you that knows things, not just an agent, but a horse loving horse owner agent, because that's the difference.
That is absolutely right. If the agent has the interest, she will take that property as though it were he or she will take that property as though it were their own, and they will just sell it because of the enthusiasm of what the property has or doesn't have, or how you can change it to, say you've got 4 small kids, and they have big stalls. Well, you're probably going to start them off with ponies. That's fine. Then you grow into a larger horse, depending whether it's a, X jumper or, could be anything. So
Right.
there's different stages. But when you look and selling a property, I just do the overall, because then they'll change their mind as they start. It's like, oh, so and so daughter wants a horse and I want a horse, and they may need training, so they have
Right.
to do it properly.
Yeah.
But then you always have the person that says, "Oh, I know all about that. I had horses when I was a little girl, and I know
Yeah.
exactly what I've got to do." That makes me nervous.
Yeah.
But you know what? Those are the kind of people that, as long as you sell them the right property, then if they think they know about the horses and what they have to do, as long as you just kind of keep in touch with them and give them support, like farriers' names or a vet that you use or a vet that in their area that's very good, they'll find their way with the horse, because things are not the same as they were 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
So, and
Well-
techniques are a little bit different too.
Yeah, but the biggest thing I see, on top of all the things that you said, is that you can assess. Like, let's say they have horses now. Oh, what kind of horses? What kind of horses are they? Most agents wouldn't even ask. But depending upon the type of horse, depends on the property, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, to a certain degree, yes. If you're looking for a big thoroughbred and you want him to he's been with you for a long time, he's retiring, you're not going to need all the jumps and all the barrels, it's not a barrel racing horse. You're just going to want a nice property. You're going to want to make sure it's got grass. And does it have grass in the fall? You're not going to want to seed it. Your property should be as natural as possible. You don't want to use any fertilizer on it if horses are going to be in a particular area. And so if you have all that, you should really know, like if you're in your stalls and that particular stall doesn't have a Dutch door, yet your horse is maybe 27 years old and you're just holding on to him, you should have an egress, probably at both sides of the stall, because what if he doesn't feel well or he's sick or he wants to go outside? If your horse ends up staying inside and then he just kind of drops inside and he dies inside, you have to take all the back or the front of your barn out of your stall to get the horse out.
Right.
When they come in with the backhoe. So when you do things like that, and I was telling a friend that the other day, she's got some big warm bloods and she's got Friesians. And I said, you know what? I said, you've got an EPM horse. When you see that things are kind of moving and progressing with his illness, you just make sure that he's not in the stall all the time, that he also has access at nighttime, the way your barn is set up. If you've got to fence out a little paddock,
Yeah.
call it your medical paddock, that's really where you want to keep him. You don't want him running around the property. You don't want him staying in the stall. That'll be devastating to you when the backhoe comes in and says, well, I've got to take this whole wall down. You've got a very
Right.
expensive barn. She goes, oh my God, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
So, people I kept mine in my medical paddock, but I left his Dutch door open and he would go in and out and, that's how I lucked out. But even then, getting the backhoe in, I had a back gate, but the backhoe came in, had to pick him up to move him into the hole that, we dug. And he was a little wider than the gate, so we had to lift him up a little higher, and we were holding our breath, so it's just, those are the kind of things that are important. You can't only think of today. You can't think like of so-and-so who has this or has that. Think about, like, if it were a live person, you had to think of his or her medical needs
Right.
as they get older.
Right.
When you have old people that, like my mom lives with us, she's 94, she has dementia and Alzheimer's. I had to pull up all my rugs where she walks because, they fall.
Oh.
So, those are the kind of things like, okay, I never thought about doing that in my house, never. But now
Yeah.
that Mom's here, yeah, we did other things instead. If you're going to have carpeting, you want it wall to wall. Or hardwood floors, then you have to have certain rugs, certain places, so they don't trip and fall and hurt themselves.
Sure.
So it's just, it's the same thing with an animal, but it depends. I live and breathe my animals. And I love them and I take care of them and I play with them. And if people don't have that and they're just getting the animal just to say, I've got a horse, then that's a wrong message for the horse. And they'll know. They'll know.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
they have to think about that. But some agents have no clue when they say, "Oh, it's a horse property," or "You could have horses there." Oh, really? I could have horses? Is it fenced? Does it have water troughs? Does it have water on the property? Does it have a pond? Oh no, it doesn't have any of that.
Yeah.
Tell me about the barn. Oh, well, it's a horse barn. Oh, well, what's the footing? What do you mean? What's the footing? And then that's
Yeah.
when I
You
know
talked about
I'm in
that
trouble.
before. You talking about the footing. What's the deal with the footing?
And the footing is what's the stall? What's the footing in the stall? Is it gravel? Is it dirt? Is it sand? Is it quarter down? Is it cement?
Wow. Yeah.
So, and you don't want a horse standing on cement all day. That will ruin their feet and their legs, unless they're wearing boots. So I never really get into the boot situation because, a lot of people don't have boots, buy boots for their horses unless it's medical. But what's your footing? It could be concrete alleyway. Mine is a concrete alleyway, but when you get into the stall, what I did in my alleyway is I have big rubber mats that are like 4x6. So there's like maybe 2 feet on each side, and the horses very seldom walk there. So if they stand in the alleyway, they're standing on rubber. Then they go into their stalls, and I have quarter down. Quarter down is like a gravel, so to speak, but you wet it, and as it dries, it hardens. And then you can leave the quarter down there. You can put shavings on top of that, or you can put rubber mats where they eat, so their feet are always cushioned.
Oh.
And that just that's all maintenance stuff. You don't want horses ever to stand on concrete. If you go out to Kentucky and go to those fabulous barns, they'll have concrete alleyways, but their stalls are definitely not concrete. They're
Right.
quartered down with shavings on top of there.
Right. And
That's for comfort for their feet and their legs.
right. And so all of this, like all the things that you're saying, when someone hears this, the person that is looking to buy and looking has horses, likes to treat them well, and when they hear this, they're like, "Oh man, she's exactly what I'm looking for." You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you would hope that they would think that, because what's most important when you've got a client is you should be the go-to person. You should be the source. And that's what I always position myself as, whether it's a horse property or a gentleman's, property, whether it's a residential home, whether it's a condo. I just try to be the go-to source for them. And that's how you keep happy clients.
Right, but with a horse property, it's more than just be the source for the house. It's being the source for
everything of the property.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For their livelihood and the enjoyment of all, like between the horses and the family, all that stuff. You're sort of committing to their happiness past the date of sale.
Of course, yeah, you have to be.
Well, you
If
say
you
of
have
course, but
you have like 9 acres or something, and you only have one area for water source, and they walk the 9 acres to the other end, and there's no water. That can be detrimental to a horse because they have to have water. Now, sometimes they will walk all the way back to the barn to get the water, and then walk all the way back to feed the herd. It's like, for me, would I do that? Would I want? I'm a person. Would I want to be doing that to get water? Heck no.
yeah,
Why can't I just have a water trough over there with water line running or something and put it on an automatic? You don't ever have to worry about it. It'll just fill itself. But
right.
see, some people don't know that, and that's why education, it's like this for anything and everything that you do.
Well,
A little bit of education goes a long way.
yeah, but so now on the selling side of it, let's say someone did do that. They have the barn the way that you're saying, and they have the water throughout the acreage the way you're saying. those are costs that another property that the buyer would have to invest in. It's already done. So with the price that the seller is offering, it's actually a deal compared to going somewhere else and doing it all yourself. You know?
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, it'll be a little higher, but it's already there. If you don't, I mean, somebody will kind of always nickel and dime
Yeah,
the
yeah.
property down. They'll say, well, I can do this and I can do that. Well, you're right, but in this day and age, it's not like it was 10 years ago. You know, you have material issues. Materials are a lot more expensive. So those are the kind of things that, let's do our homework beforehand. You have, 3 acres that you want to make sure that there's a water trough, water line. Let's find out. Let's get a plumber out here. How much is it going to cost? And don't tell me that you're going to do it yourself. Let's be realistic here. Let's just go ahead and get a plumber. Tell me what it's going to cost. You know what the commercial price will be. Then if you can do it, go ahead and do it. As long as you've got the time to do it. But at least it's going to give you an idea that they already have it in their price and they can bring in, 2, 3, 4 horses at any time and they're ready to go. So those kind of things are things to look at, and you always have to do the pros and cons for every property. I'm doing one right now, and it's a horse property, and they're going to be doing a lot of things there. And we're going through every single inspection that you can think of and getting quotes on what it's going to cost to do this, this, and this. And so that way they know where they're at. And if they're going to pay the big cost to buy it, then they're going to have the cost to also bring it up to speed and have everything they need for the horses. So it's just kind of, you gotta be methodical. You just gotta say, what's my goal? Why do I want a horse? Why do I have a horse? Is it just to say, I have horses? And then everybody goes goo goo gaga because you've got horses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's true.
Yeah.
Kids that go, but they don't have any idea. And it never fails. Every time someone will come over here, whether it's a service guy or delivery man, and my horses are wearing their fly masks, they will actually say to me, why do those horses have those things on their face? What's wrong with their face? I said, that's a fly mask, and we put those on their face to protect them from the flies. Oh, really? A fly mask? But can they see? And I said, sure. Come here, I'll show you. I take one off and I say, look through here. And went, oh, it's like sunglasses. It's a you can see through. I said, yes. Horses don't walk around being blind. They're not blind.
That's funny.
So they always go, oh, I didn't know that. I learned that today. And I go, and see, those are just simple things, but if you don't know what those are, they're not so simple. You just have to know what it is, and when you have a horse, having a fly mask is always very important.
Yeah.
Otherwise, flies are just chew on their faces, and it just creates situation and issues. And I adopted a horse that had cancer on his face, on the sun, and then of course I had to heal that every night. I had to put some ointment in it, and it would eat away the cancer. So his face had like a hole. And it took 2 years to get his face back to normal. So, of course, I would put a fly mask on every day, 24/7, take it off, change it, wash it, put another one on, let that one dry for a day, then put the new one on, put the old one on, and just to keep the flies out because they would do damage in his face. So it's just, I don't know, you got to love it. You got to love it to do it. That's all. And for me, my family thinks I'm,
nuts.
I'm over the top.
Yeah, they think you're nuts.
Because I just love my animals and I love what I do, real estate. And I just, I live out in the country and there's no better place.
Yeah, but you definitely, you go, so there's so many agents that because they haven't never connected with horse ownership, they just see it as a property and a paycheck. And so the fact that you owned them, you've loved them, you've lived with them all your life, you've got a connection that you take on the responsibility of their happiness when you sell a property. And that shows to me, and I'm just an idiot, the people that have horses or want horses would, if everyone that was about to buy or sell were to listen to what I just heard today, they'd be like, oh my God, I want her. Because
she'll educate me on the property as well as educate what I have to do or not do or what should I do.
Right.
You know, I mean, or think, do I want a horse or do I not want a horse?
Yeah.
You know, some people will come and the husband wants horses, the wife wants chickens, the little boy wants ducks.
Yeah.
And it just goes on, and I just chuckle and I say, all right, guys, what we have to do is focus on the property first. Then we do the animals.
Right.
They kind of look at me, and I said, well, if you want a horse, can you tell Miss Diane where the barn is? Well, there is no barn. So if you're going to have a horse, you got to have a running shed, or you got to have a small barn. How many horses are you going to have? You have to sit down and think about that. So Daddy can build a running shed or a barn. Got to keep hay, got to keep food, got to have water. Little boy looks at me and goes, Mommy, we got to have all those things for a horse. And I just kind of let the mom answer. She goes, I guess so. If Miss Diane says we need it.
Yeah.
I try to involve the kids and have fun with it. Because then it makes them like, gee, I don't know if I want to clean that. Well, I guess you're going to have to get a little rig.
Yeah,
We'll go shopping, get you a rig so you can clean the horse doo-doo every day. In the morning before you go to school and at night before you feed them dinner. They'll go, oh, really? Oh, I like doing that. And I'm thinking,
yeah, okay, yeah.
We'll give it 2 days, if that.
Yeah, but
those are all the things that even little kids got to have the desire to do that.
And if it steers them away from getting a horse, that's okay for you because you're more concerned about the animal's welfare, and if it means that you sell them something else, that's okay. Or if you don't sell them at all, that's
fine.
okay.
As long as that's fine. As long if they want a horse, maybe they'll just go 3 or 5 acres and they'll start with a horse. But I always tell them, you don't want just a horse.
Right.
You want a horse with a donkey. You want a horse with a goat.
Yeah,
a goat. You want a horse with a
pig,
dog.
A pig.
A big dog, not a little wiener dog.
Yeah.
I said, you got to think about it. Don't jump. Don't jump at the first thought, I want a horse. Where do I buy a horse?
Right.
I said, there's a lot of rescues out there that just want someone to love them. Yeah. I said, you don't have to go out and spend tons of money, but you got to find the right horse with the right personality for the right person.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? They don't talk to you. And I said, oh.
They do.
I'll show you how. So,
yeah.
It's just,
that's great.
You just got to love it. That's all.
Yeah, well, anyway. I tell you, your conversation with me 10 years ago had me going, you know what, I got to call her. And I'm so glad I did.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez, that's really nice.
Yeah, I'm so glad I did.
Didn't know that I had that effect on you.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And then
if someone's looking for a horse property, you got to talk to them first. Why do they want a horse property? Do they just want acreage with the hopes of getting a horse? Well, then, yes, we should find out. Most places here in Tennessee, I don't know how it is any other place in the country, most places in Tennessee here, unless you are in a subdivision, a horse is allowed. In a subdivision, it wouldn't be. But if you have an acre, normally, if you're out in a rural area, you can actually have a horse on an acre with a house on it. I always tell them you don't want to do that. Your horse will have no place to go. But if you're in a rural county, we don't have the laws, the rules, the restrictions like you would in another county living in a subdivision. Even if you have acreage in the city, if you have the acreage in the city, most likely you would be allowed to have a horse because you have acreage. If you have, 5 acres or something like that, you would be allowed to have a horse or 2 or 3. You could even have 4. So it all depends where you want to look. Why do you want a horse? What's the purpose of your horse? Just a casual buddy? Or are you planning on doing some major, hunter-jumper kind of stuff? Are you going to show? So, yeah, those things are important, but they're not, in my opinion, they come after you find the property. Find the property, and I always do my due diligence on a scale of 1 to 5. I always ask the people that day that I'm looking at the properties. I'll go, so what do you think? And, let's do our due diligence. And if they do the due diligence and I know where the properties are for horses, an agent should know. They're not going to take them to a place where there's restrictions. I mean, I wouldn't think so unless they don't know the area. So, yeah, that's important, but it's more important to find the property and then and find out why they want the horse. Because if they want a horse, you're not gonna, and they're gonna start showing, and they want to be on the circuit, you're not gonna, the circuit stays up in Nashville, and you're living down in Columbia, that's an hour drive. Is that what they want? Or are you gonna move them closer to Murfreesboro? Of course, now they're gonna say, well, my friend's kids go to this school, I wanna be in that same area. Well, then that's when you've gotta tell them, you've gotta move a little more south if you want acreage and have a horse or two. So there's a lot that goes into it, but that would not be my first thing to throw zoning out at them with restrictions. Heck no. Find out about the people. Why do they want a horse? Why do they want acreage property? Who's gonna cut the grass? You know, if you have horses, do you think they're just gonna eat all the grass? So you're gonna let your property go? Oh no, you gotta think about getting a Z-turn or a push lawnmower, whatever one you want, if you want exercise. Yeah, so I'm serious. I'm just very easy when I talk to my clients. I talk to them like I would be talking to my brother or sister, you know, and I try to make every client just have fun in looking for a property because it can be pretty stressful sometimes, especially when you're in negotiations.
Yeah, but your in-depth knowledge helps them feel more comfortable than with other agents that they hit the landmine while they're going through it. Where with you get to know them so well that you're able to help them with the expectations of the process, and that what they're doing is more than just doing the bare minimum, and that here's what you have to do this, and then the next level is this, and
right, exactly.
So
that's important.
Yeah, so it's awesome. So
yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
And keep in touch. And
I will.
Let me know.
I will.
Send me an email whenever you feel like. You still got my email address, right?
Yeah, Diane@bornforrealestate.com.
You got it.
Okay, thank you.
It.
Yeah, thank you. See ya.
All right, kiddo. Thank
Bye.
you. Have a
Bye.
good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.